Lily had no way of knowing that within a few hours, the man whose hand she was clutching in desperation would give an order that would change the course of several lives. She didn't know that somewhere in the city, behind tinted windows and whispered loyalty, men would move at his command not for money, not for territory, but for her. And she certainly didn't know that this single, reckless moment would force him to make the one choice he had avoided for decades. A choice between two worlds, one built on blood, fear, and absolute control. An empire that bowed to his name and survived because of his ruthlessness. And another, fragile, dangerous in its own way, where a frightened woman and a small child looked at him not as a king or a monster, but as a last hope. Lily didn't see the weight of the ring on his finger, or the subtle shift in the room when she touched him. She didn't notice the men watching from the shadows, the way their posture changed, the way their eyes sharpened. She only knew the man who had just walked through the restaurant doors, her ex-husband, the man who had broken her wrist, the man who had threatened to take her daughter, the man who smiled when he realized she was trapped. Lily knew what would happen if she let go. He would humiliate her. He would corner her. He would remind her again that fear was the only thing he still owned. So she did the unthinkable. She grabbed a stranger's hand. She held on as if her life depended on it. Because in that moment, it did. What Lily didn't realize was that she hadn't reached for safety. She had reached for a storm. And once Vincent Russo felt her fingers tighten around his, once he saw the terror she was trying to hide, something ancient and dangerous stirred inside him. That night, he would give an order no one dared question. And nothing, not her past, not his enemies, not even his own empire would ever be the same again. Lily learned very quickly that luxury was not designed for women like her. The restaurant glowed with warm amber light, polished marble floors, and crystal chandeliers that reflected wealth from every angle. Everything smelled expensive aged wine, imported truffles, cologne that lingered long after its wearer had passed. Lily moved through it all like a ghost, careful, quiet, unseen unless someone needed something. Her black heels pinched her toes. The fitted skirt restricted her steps. By the end of every shift, her lower back burned with a familiar ache she no longer complained about. Complaining didn't pay rent. Complaining didn't buy groceries. Complaining didn't keep her 4-year-old daughter warm at night. For 6 months, Lily had worked here, saving every tip, every extra dollar, calculating expenses in her head while smiling politely at customers who never noticed her exhaustion. Every cent went toward daycare, food, and the debts her ex-husband had left behind when he walked out of their marriage and their bank account. This job was survival. Nothing more. That Friday night was louder than usual. Businessmen celebrated deals they would forget by morning. Couples laughed too loudly over wine they didn't finish. Lily balanced a tray of plates on her arm, weaving between tables with practiced precision, her thoughts already drifting toward Emma, her soft curls, her sleepy voice asking if Mommy would be home soon. She was halfway across the dining room when the front doors opened. A cold rush of autumn air swept in. Lily felt it before she saw him. The world seemed to narrow, the noise dimming as if someone had turned down the volume on reality. Her hands tightened around the tray instinctively, her body freezing mid-step. David stood just inside the entrance. Tailored suit, confident posture, one hand casually tucked into his pocket like he owned the place, like he owned her. Her heart slammed violently against her ribs. No, not here, not now. David hadn't noticed her yet. He was speaking to the hostess, smiling easily. That same charming smile that had once convinced Lily she was safe. The smile that had fooled friends, neighbors, even her own family. The smile that disappeared behind closed doors. Her palms began to sweat. David was not just her ex-husband. He was the man who had broken her wrist when she tried to leave. The man who had threatened to take Emma away where she'd never be found. The man who showed up drunk at her old apartment months after the divorce, pounding on the door until the neighbors called the police. She had moved across the city, changed her number, erased herself as carefully as she could. And yet, here he was. Her tray wobbled slightly. If he saw her like this wearing a waitress uniform, serving strangers, he would savor it. He would corner her. He would humiliate her. He would remind her, once again, how small she was without him. Lily scanned the room desperately. The kitchen was too far. The restrooms required passing the entrance. There was nowhere to go. Her breathing grew shallow. The hostess flipped through the reservation book. Any second now, she would turn, gesture toward the dining room, and David would follow her gaze, toward Lily, toward her shame. Her chest tightened painfully. Think. Move. Now. Abandoning the tray on a nearby empty table, Lily turned sharply and nearly ran toward the bar. Her vision tunneled, her heartbeat roaring in her ears. She barely registered the group of men seated there, all dressed in dark suits, their drinks untouched. There was an empty space between two of them. Without thinking, Lily slid into it. And then she did something reckless, something unthinkable. She reached out and grabbed the hand of the man beside her. His hand was warm, solid, a stark contrast to the cold fear flooding her veins. She wrapped her fingers around it tightly, as if it were the only thing anchoring her to the ground. "I'm so sorry," she whispered urgently, her voice trembling. "Please, just pretend you know me. For a heartbeat." Nothing happened. The man stiffened slightly beneath her touch. Lily couldn't bring herself to look at him. Her eyes remained locked on the reflection in the mirror behind the bar, watching David scan the room now, his gaze drifting closer, closer. Her grip tightened unconsciously. Then, slowly, the man's fingers moved. Instead of pulling away, he turned his hand, interlacing his fingers with hers. His grip was firm but controlled, as if the decision had been deliberate, final. Before Lily could react, his arm shifted behind her, drawing her subtly closer to his side, protectively, possessively. She inhaled sharply. His voice came low and calm, close to her ear. "There you are," he said, as though greeting a lover who had wandered off. "I was wondering where you disappeared to." The words sent a shiver down her spine. Relief crashed over her so suddenly that Lily nearly sagged against him. From the corner of her eye, she saw David pause. His gaze flickered toward the bar, then away. Something about the scene had dissuaded him. The way the man beside her sat, the quiet authority in his posture. The stranger shifted slightly, angling his body so Lily was shielded from view. "Is that him?" he asked softly. Lily nodded. Her heart was still racing, but for the first time since David walked in, she could breathe. The man's thumb brushed lightly against the back of her hand, an intimate gesture that felt far too natural. "Ex-husband," he said. "Not a question." "Yes. Does he know where you live?" The question startled her. Lily swallowed. "No, I don't think so." For a moment, the man said nothing. She felt the tension ripple through him. Subtle but unmistakable, like something dangerous briefly surfacing. Then a voice called from behind them. "Vincent." The name seemed to shift the air around them. The man Vincent did not look away from Lily. "Not now," he said quietly. The voice retreated. Lily finally dared to look at him. Dark eyes met hers so deep they were almost black. His face was all sharp lines and quiet strength, older than her by several years, touched with silver at the temples. He looked like a man who was used to being obeyed, a man who did not explain himself. "Your name?" he asked. "Lily." Something unreadable flickered across his expression. "Lily," he repeated, as if committing it to memory. He released her hand only long enough to slip a card into her palm. "If he approaches you tonight, call this number, immediately." She stared down at the card, then back up at him. "Thank you. You should return to work," Vincent said gently. "I'll make sure he doesn't bother you." She hesitated, then nodded. As Lily stood and walked away, her legs still unsteady, she felt his gaze follow her across the room. Steady, watchful. She did not know who Vincent Russo was. She did not know that men feared his name. She did not know that by grabbing his hand, she had crossed an invisible line, one that could never be uncrossed. All Lily knew was that for the first time in a long while, someone had stepped between her and the darkness without asking for anything in return. And somewhere deep inside her, something dangerous and fragile had begun to stir. Hope? If this story touched your heart, follow the channel to enjoy many more heart-stirring stories every week. Lily returned to work on instinct alone. Her body moved through the restaurant as it had hundreds of times before collecting plates, refilling glasses, murmuring polite apologies, but her mind lagged several steps behind, caught on the weight of a business card tucked into the pocket of her apron and the lingering warmth of a stranger's hand. She could still feel it. The steady pressure. The way he hadn't hesitated. The certainty in his touch, as if stepping into her chaos had never been a question. Vincent Russo. The name meant nothing to her. Yet the way it had fallen from the other man's mouth low, deferential, made her skin prickle. Names carried weight in places like this. She had learned that much from watching wealthy patrons command attention with nothing more than a nod. And Vincent hadn't needed to raise his voice at all. Lily stole a glance toward the bar. He was still there, seated exactly as before, one arm resting casually against the counter, posture relaxed but alert, like a man who could afford to wait. The group around him spoke quietly, their laughter restrained, their movements measured. Even the bartender, usually sharp-tongued and impatient, served him with uncharacteristic respect. People noticed him without staring. They gave him space without knowing why. A shiver traced Lily's spine. Cooper. Marco's voice cut through her thoughts. Table 12 needs another bottle of red. And try not to wander off again. I wasn't... Lily stopped herself and nodded. Yes. She grabbed the wine, her hands trembling slightly as she poured. Her gaze flicked, unbidden, toward the entrance. David was still there, seated now, laughing with the woman beside him, a blonde, younger, dressed in something far too expensive for this to be coincidence. Lily felt a familiar twist in her chest, not jealousy, but something sharper. The memory of how easily he had replaced her while she had been left piecing her life together from fragments. He hadn't noticed her. Not yet. And the knowledge that Vincent was watching somehow impossibly made all the difference. Time stretched strangely after that. Each minute felt suspended, heavy with anticipation. Lily worked, but she was acutely aware of every movement around the bar, every shift in Vincent's attention. Once, their eyes met across the room. He didn't smile. He didn't wave. He simply held her gaze for a fraction longer than necessary. It felt like a promise. When Lily finally retreated to the kitchen to drop off plates, her knees nearly gave out. She braced herself against the counter, breathing deeply, willing her heartbeat to slow. What was she doing? She didn't grab strangers' hands. She didn't accept help without consequences. Life had taught her that every kindness came with strings sometimes invisible, sometimes brutal. And yet, she thought of Emma, of her daughter's laugh, the way she crawled into Lily's bed at night when thunderstorms rattled the windows. Lily had promised herself, sworn, that no one would ever make her child feel unsafe again. If trusting a stranger for one night kept David at bay, then so be it. She returned to the dining room with renewed resolve. Near the bar, Vincent shifted slightly as one of his men leaned in to murmur something. Lily couldn't hear the words, but she saw the change, the faint narrowing of Vincent's eyes, the almost imperceptible nod. The man, Enzo. She remembered, straightened and moved. He didn't approach Lily. He didn't approach Vincent. Instead, he drifted casually into the path between David's table and the hallway that led toward the bar. David stood moments later. Lily froze mid-step. He excused himself from the blonde woman, pushing his chair back, and began walking toward the bar. Toward her. Her breath caught painfully in her throat. She felt it then, the shift in the room, the tension coiling tight like a held breath. Enzo stepped directly into David's path. The collision looked accidental to anyone watching. A clumsy bump, a muttered apology. David frowned, irritation flashing across his face as he gestured sharply, clearly demanding to pass. Enzo leaned closer. Too close. Lily couldn't hear what he said, but she saw the color drain from David's face. His bravado faltered. His shoulders stiffened, then slumped. He glanced past Enzo toward the bar, toward Vincent. Their eyes met across the room. Vincent didn't move. He didn't threaten, didn't gesture. He simply watched, his expression unreadable, his presence unyielding. David swallowed. Then, abruptly, he turned away. He didn't look back. Lily stood frozen, her pulse pounding in her ears, as David returned to his table and sat heavily, avoiding her side of the room entirely. The blonde woman leaned in, asking something Lily couldn't hear. David shook his head, his jaw tight. Relief surged through Lily so fiercely it made her dizzy. She exhaled shakily and turned away before her legs could betray her. The rest of her shift passed in a blur. David finished his meal quickly, barely touching his food. He paid, stood, and left without a backward glance. Only when the doors closed behind him did Lily realize her hands were clenched into fists. She hadn't even noticed Vincent rise from the bar until he was beside her. "Are you all right?" His voice was low, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something subtle and clean, nothing overpowering. Lily startled, then nodded. "Yes. I think... yes." "Good." She looked up at him, searching his face. "What did your friend say to him?" Vincent considered her for a moment. Enough. It wasn't an answer, but it was honest. Before she could press further, Marco appeared, his expression tight. "Cooper." Table 7. His gaze flicked to Vincent and stalled. Something like recognition, no, apprehension crossed his features. "I didn't realize you were occupied." "She was assisting me," Vincent said calmly. Marco cleared his throat. "Of course. Take your time." Lily stared after him, stunned. "I should get back to work," she murmured. Vincent nodded. "I'll be here." Something in the certainty of his tone sent another shiver through her. He didn't follow her again. He didn't demand her attention. He simply remained quiet, watchful, unmistakably present. When Lily's shift finally ended hours later, exhaustion hit her all at once. She changed quickly, tugging on her worn sweater, her mind already calculating the bus schedule. Midnight meant a long walk if she missed it. As she stepped into the narrow hallway near the employee exit, Marco intercepted her, holding a thick envelope. "This is for you," he said, his voice oddly respectful. Lily frowned. "What is it?" "From Mr. Russo?" Her heart skipped. "I didn't ask for." "He said you'd need a ride home." Before Lily could respond, the door opened. Enzo stood there. "Ms. Cooper," he said politely. "The car is waiting. I can take the bus." Lily protested automatically. "The last one left 10 minutes ago." Her stomach dropped. Outside, the black SUV waited at the curb, engine purring softly. Lily hesitated, the envelope heavy in her hand, every instinct screaming caution. But she was tired, so deeply tired. She slid into the back seat. As the car pulled away, Lily finally opened the envelope. Money. More than she had seen in months. Her face burned. "I can't accept this." Enzo met her gaze in the mirror. "You're not being paid." "Then what is it?" "Consider it compensation for inconvenience." Lily laughed bitterly. "I didn't plan tonight, I know." They drove in silence until her apartment came into view. And then Lily saw the car across the street. David's car. Her breath caught. Enzo noticed immediately. He stepped out of the SUV, positioning himself between Lily and the street. "Go inside," he said calmly. "Lock your door." And him. Enzo's mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. He won't follow. Lily didn't argue. She hurried inside, heart racing, and peered through the window moments later. She watched David approach Enzo. She watched Enzo lean in, and she watched David flee. Only then did Lily sink to the floor, shaking. Somewhere in the city, Vincent Russo would be finishing his night, and Lily, unknowingly, had just become something far more dangerous than a frightened woman. She had become someone worth protecting. Lily didn't sleep that night. She lay beside Emma, listening to her daughter's slow, even breathing, one small arm draped across Lily's chest as if anchoring her there. Outside, the city hummed faintly, sirens in the distance, footsteps echoing somewhere below. Every sound felt sharper, heavier, as though her senses had been tuned too high. David's face kept replaying in her mind the moment fear finally cracked through his arrogance. The way his shoulders had slumped, the way he had fled. That had never happened before. Not with restraining orders, not with police warnings, not with months of hiding and running and starting over. Nothing had ever truly stopped David. Until tonight. Lily stared at the ceiling, the envelope of money tucked into her bag across the room like a silent accusation. She hadn't touched it again, hadn't counted it properly. She already knew how much it was without looking. Enough to breathe for a while, enough to change things, enough to scare her. Because money like that never came without gravity. It pulled you into orbit whether you wanted it to or not. By morning, Lily had decided exactly one thing: she would return the money. She would thank Vincent Russo politely, firmly, and then she would step back into her carefully constructed life. She had survived worse than discomfort. She could survive uncertainty. What she could not survive was dependence. The morning passed in a blur of routine. Pancakes shaped like lopsided hearts. Emma chattering about a dream involving a purple dog and a flying bus. Lily smiled, laughed in the right places, and packed her daughter's bag for daycare as if the world hadn't shifted beneath her feet. Only when she dropped Emma off and stepped back into the quiet of her apartment did the weight return. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Her heart stuttered. "Did you sleep well?" Lily. She stared at the screen, pulse quickening. She hadn't given Vincent her number. She was certain of it. "How did you get this number?" she typed, then erased it. Instead, she wrote, "I'm fine. Thank you for last night. I need to return the money." The reply came almost immediately. "We should talk. Tonight." A pause. Then another message. "I'll send a car." Lily exhaled sharply, irritation flaring beneath her nerves. There it was, the assumption. The quiet certainty that she would comply. "I can't," she typed. "I have my daughter." This time? The pause stretched longer. Lily set the phone down, her jaw tight. She refused to let herself pace, refused to feel small. Vincent Russo might have power, but he didn't get to rearrange her life without her consent. The phone buzzed again. "Bring her." Her breath caught. That single sentence unsettled her more than any threat could have. It wasn't forceful. It wasn't demanding. It was confident. "I won't put my child in danger," Lily replied. Another pause. Longer still. "Then my sister will watch her. She's trained. You'll be within sight. This matters. Lily, please, please." The word lingered on the screen. Lily sat heavily on the couch, staring at the cracked wall across from her. Vincent had planned for her objections, anticipated them, adjusted not to dominate, but to reassure. That frightened her more than brute force ever could. By the time evening came, Lily was still torn. She changed twice, finally settling on a simple black dress she hadn't worn since before the divorce. It fit differently now, looser, softer, but she didn't change again. She braided Emma's hair with trembling fingers, her mind spinning through worst-case scenarios. The black SUV arrived precisely at 8. This time, Vincent himself stepped out. The sight of him stole her breath despite her resolve. He looked the same as he had in the restaurant composed, immaculate but in the fading daylight. There was something more human about him, less shadow, less distance. His gaze softened when he saw Emma peeking out from behind Lily's leg. "Hello?" he said gently, lowering himself slightly. "You must be Emma." Emma studied him with solemn curiosity. "Are you Mommy's friend?" Vincent glanced at Lily, something unreadable flickering between them. "I hope so." The ride was quiet. Emma was quickly absorbed by the novelty of the car, pointing out lights and buildings while Lily stared out the window, her reflection pale in the glass. Vincent didn't press her, didn't reach for her hand. He simply sat beside her, present without intrusion. They arrived at a house Lily hadn't expected. It wasn't ostentatious. No towering gates or gaudy displays of wealth, just clean lines, soft lighting, and a sense of calm that felt almost unreal. Maria met them at the door. She was warm in a way Lily hadn't anticipated, dark-haired, kind-eyed, her smile genuine. She crouched to Emma's level, speaking softly, explaining the garden room, the toys, the glowing flowers. Emma's hesitation lasted all of 30 seconds. As Lily watched her daughter disappear down the hallway with Maria, a knot formed in her chest. "She's safe," Vincent said quietly, as if reading her thoughts. "I wouldn't risk her. Ever." Lily nodded, swallowing hard. Dinner was not a spectacle. No extravagant spread, just carefully prepared food, simple and elegant. They sat across from each other, the space between them deliberate. "I didn't come for the money," Lily said finally. "And I won't accept it." Vincent regarded her steadily. "I know. Then why did you give it to me?" "Because last night disrupted your life," he replied. "And because you shouldn't have to worry about rent while someone else tries to intimidate you. I don't want to owe you." "You don't—" Lily frowned. "That's not how this works." Vincent's lips curved slightly. "In my world. Perhaps not here." She hesitated, then asked the question that had been burning since the restaurant. What did Enzo say to David Vincent's expression, darkened not with anger, but with something colder? He told him the truth. "And that is that touching you again would cost him more than he's willing to lose." Lily shivered. "And if he doesn't listen," she asked quietly, "he will—" The certainty in his voice was absolute. Silence stretched between them, heavy but not uncomfortable. "Why me?" Lily asked suddenly. "You could have ignored me. Anyone else would have." Vincent studied her for a long moment. "Because you didn't ask for help. You asked for time. There's a difference." She looked down at her hands. "I'm not someone who needs rescuing." "I know," he said softly. "That's why I helped." Something in his words slipped past her defenses, settling deep and dangerous. Lily changed the subject, unwilling to linger there. Later, as they stood near the glass wall overlooking the garden room, Lily watched Emma laugh as lights bloomed beneath her feet. The sound eased something tight in her chest. "You're good with her," Lily said. Vincent's gaze softened. Children see things adults forget. When it was time to leave, Vincent walked them to the door. He didn't touch Lily until the very end, when he pressed a small velvet box into her hand. "A gift," he said before she could protest. "Nothing you can't refuse later." At home, after Emma was asleep, Lily finally opened it. A silver bracelet. Simple, elegant. A tiny key dangling from it. Her phone buzzed. "Sleep well tonight. Lily." She closed her fingers around the bracelet, her heart racing. She didn't know it yet, but by accepting that small, delicate thing, Lily had crossed another line, one that would soon demand far more than gratitude. And Vincent Russo, watching the city from behind darkened glass, was already making preparations. Lily noticed the changes before anyone told her they were there. It began subtly, the way most dangerous things did. A black sedan she didn't recognize parked across the street more often than coincidence could explain. A man standing near the corner cafe every morning, always pretending to check his phone, always gone by the time she glanced again. At first, Lily told herself she was imagining it. Trauma had a way of sharpening fear into patterns that weren't real. But then there were other signs. The building superintendent suddenly fixed the broken hallway light that had been ignored for months. The daycare director greeted Lily by name one morning, smiling too warmly, mentioning that someone had made a generous donation for new security cameras. Even Marco at the restaurant sharp-tongued. Perpetually impatient, Marco had begun speaking to her differently. His orders softened, his glares replaced with something closer to respect. None of it felt accidental. Lily didn't ask Vincent about it right away. Part of her didn't want to know how deeply his presence had already woven itself into her life. Another part feared what the answer might confirm, that she was no longer invisible, no longer untouchable by the world she'd spent years trying to outrun. Their messages continued, sparse but steady. Vincent never asked too much, never demanded her time. He checked on Emma, asked how Lily's shifts were going, sent flowers every few days, nothing extravagant, always tasteful, always accompanied by a note that said very little and meant far too much. She wore the bracelet every day, not because he had given it to her, she told herself, but because it reminded her that someone had seen her fear and chosen to stand between her and it. That illusion shattered on a Tuesday night. Lily was closing the restaurant, wiping down her section, when she felt that unmistakable sensation of being watched. She looked up. David stood near the entrance, not inside this time, just beyond the glass doors, waiting. Her stomach dropped. For a moment, the room tilted, old panic flooding back so fast it left her breathless. She hadn't seen him in weeks. No calls, no messages, no surprise appearances. She had almost begun to believe he was gone for good. She was wrong. David's eyes locked onto hers, and slowly, deliberately, he smiled. Lily's hands shook. She reached instinctively for her apron pocket. Fingers brushing against the phone, Vincent had insisted she carry the one with a single number programmed into it. She didn't call. Not yet. David didn't enter. He didn't need to. He raised his hand slightly, tapping the glass once with his knuckle before turning and walking away. The message was clear. I know where you are. Lily finished her shift on autopilot, every nerve screaming. By the time she stepped outside, the street was empty. No sign of David. No waiting car. Just the hum of the city and the cold air biting through her coat. Her phone vibrated. Are you all right, V? Her breath hitched. He knew. I saw him, she typed. Outside the restaurant. Seconds passed. I know. That chilled her more than anything David had done. When the SUV pulled up moments later, Lily didn't protest. She slid into the back seat, her heart pounding, her thoughts spiraling. Vincent was waiting when they arrived at his house, not in the dining room, not in the library, in the hallway, as if he had been pacing. He took one look at her face and crossed the distance between them in 3 long strides. His hands hovered at her shoulders, stopping just short of touching. He didn't approach you, Vincent said, his voice controlled. Did he? No, Lily whispered. But he wanted me to know he could. Vincent closed his eyes briefly, something dark flickering across his features. When he opened them again, his gaze was steady. This ends, he said. Lily stiffened. What do you mean? I mean he will not threaten you again. That's what you said last time. And it was true, Vincent replied. But he's testing boundaries. That's what men like him do when they feel their control slipping. The words struck too close to home. I don't want this to escalate, Lily said, finding her voice. I don't want violence. Vincent studied her intently. And if restraint puts you in danger. She hesitated. I've lived my whole life managing someone else's temper, she said quietly. I won't trade that fear for another. The silence that followed was thick, charged. You think I want that? Vincent asked softly. You think I don't know what it costs to live under someone's shadow? Lily met his gaze, surprised by the vulnerability she saw there. "I'm not your enemy," he continued. "But I won't apologize for protecting you. I didn't ask for protection." "No," Vincent agreed. "But you needed it." The truth of that hurt more than the argument. That night, Lily barely slept, torn between gratitude and resentment, relief and fear. She dreamed of locked doors and open hands, of running and being held still. The breaking point came 2 days later. Emma was playing in the living room, coloring quietly while Lily folded laundry. It was a rare moment of peace, sunlight streaming through the window, the city momentarily kind. Then came the knock. Lily froze. She knew before she opened the door. David stood there, unshaven, eyes bloodshot, anger simmering beneath a thin veneer of calm. "Hello, Lily?" he said softly. "Miss me?" Her body reacted before her mind could. She stepped back, keeping the chain on the door engaged. "You need to leave." "Relax." David scoffed. "I just want to talk." "There's nothing to talk about." His gaze slid past her shoulder, toward the living room, toward Emma. Something in Lily snapped. "Don't look at her," she said sharply. David laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. "You think you can hide behind him forever? Get out." "Russo's not as untouchable as you think," he sneered. "People are starting to talk. Say he's gone soft. Say he's distracted." Fear coiled tight in Lily's chest. "Leave," she said again, louder now. David leaned closer, lowering his voice. "You're making a mistake, Lily. You always did. And when this blows up in your face, don't come crying to me." Before she could respond, footsteps sounded behind her. The chain slid free. The door opened wider. Enzo stood there. David went pale. "I believe you've overstayed your welcome," Enzo said calmly. "This is between me and my wife." David snapped. "Ex-wife," Lily corrected, her voice steady despite the terror roaring inside her. Enzo's gaze flicked to her briefly, approving. Then back to David. "You were warned." David backed away slowly, his bravado evaporating. "This isn't over." "It is," Enzo replied. David fled. Lily sank onto the couch, shaking. Vincent arrived minutes later. He didn't shout, didn't threaten. He simply knelt in front of her, his expression raw, his hands finally resting on her knees. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I tried to end this cleanly." Lily looked at him through tears. "I don't want to be a weakness," Vincent's voice softened. "You are not a weakness. You are the reason." Something shifted then, irrevocably, because Lily realized the truth she had been avoiding. David wasn't the greatest danger anymore. It was what Vincent was willing to become for her, and whether she could live with the consequences of being chosen. After Vincent left that night, Lily sat alone on the couch long after Emma had fallen asleep, staring at the faint reflection of herself in the darkened window. The city lights shimmered beyond the glass, distant and indifferent. But inside her chest, everything felt painfully sharp. Vincent's words echoed again and again, not loud, not dramatic, but heavy with meaning. "You are the reason." She had spent years believing she was something men endured, something that complicated their lives. No one had ever suggested she could be the reason someone changed the course of their own. Sleep came in fragments. When she closed her eyes, she saw David's smile, Vincent's steady gaze, Enzo standing in her doorway like a line drawn in stone. By morning, Lily was exhausted, but something inside her had hardened into clarity. She couldn't continue like this, half protected, half resisting, caught between gratitude and fear. If Vincent was willing to walk into danger for her, then she needed to understand exactly what that danger was. She sent him a message just after sunrise. "We need to talk. Not about David. About you." The reply came minutes later. "Tonight. I'll come to you." Her fingers hovered over the screen before she typed back. "No. Somewhere neutral." A pause. Then, all right. They met at a quiet cafe near the river, the kind of place no one lingered too long. Vincent arrived first. He stood when he saw her, his expression unreadable, his presence drawing attention even in a room full of strangers. Lily sat across from him, her hands wrapped tightly around a cup she hadn't yet tasted. "I don't want half-truths," she said without preamble. "I don't want protection I don't understand. If I'm going to be part of this, whatever this is, I need to know who you really are." Vincent studied her carefully, as if weighing something far more significant than words. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, stripped of the authority she had come to associate with him. "Once you hear it, there's no pretending you don't know." "I'm not pretending anymore," Lily replied. He leaned back slightly, his gaze drifting to the river beyond the glass. "My name carries weight in this city because of the choices I've made. Some legal, many not. I built something powerful when I was younger because power was the only language anyone listened to." He paused. "And because fear was easier than trust." Lily swallowed, her pulse quickening. "You're saying you're—" "Yes," Vincent said simply. "What you suspect is true." The word mafia wasn't spoken, but it hung between them all the same. Lily felt the ground tilt beneath her, not in shock, but in confirmation. Part of her had always known. The security, the obedience, the way people stepped aside without being asked. "Why are you telling me now?" she asked. "Because I won't lie to you," Vincent said. "And because you deserve the truth before you decide whether to walk away." The honesty of that caught her off guard. Lily stared at him, searching for manipulation, for calculation. She found neither. Only weariness and something that looked dangerously close to hope. "David said you were going soft," she said quietly. Vincent's mouth curved, humorless. People say many things when they feel their grip loosening. "And is it true?" He met her gaze. "I'm leaving." The words landed with unexpected force. Leaving. What, this life? Not overnight, not without risk. But I've been dismantling it piece by piece for over a year. His voice lowered. "Meeting you didn't start that process. It accelerated it." Lily's breath caught. "Because of me. Because of Emma," he corrected gently. "And because of what you represent. A future that isn't built on fear." For a long moment, Lily couldn't speak. She had spent years clawing her way toward stability, teaching herself not to trust grand promises. And yet, here was a man who controlled an empire of shadows, telling her he wanted out not for redemption, but for possibility. And the danger she asked finally. "You said there would be consequences." Vincent nodded. "There already are. Not everyone wants me to go quietly. Some see it as betrayal, weakness." Her chest tightened. And David Vincent's eyes darkened. David was a symptom, not the disease. Lily leaned back, overwhelmed. "You're asking me to accept a lot." "I'm asking you to choose," Vincent said softly. "Not tonight. Not even soon. Just honestly." They sat in silence, the weight of truth settling between them. When they stood to leave, Vincent didn't touch her. He walked her outside, stopped beneath the fading sunlight, and held her gaze. "Whatever you decide," he said. "I won't force you. I won't follow you. But I won't pretend this doesn't matter to me." That night, Lily stared at the bracelet on her wrist long after Emma fell asleep. The tiny key gleamed faintly in the lamplight, its meaning clearer now. It wasn't an invitation. It was a threshold. Days passed, then weeks. David did not return. No calls, no sightings. The quiet should have been comforting. Instead, it felt like the calm before something unnamed. Lily noticed Vincent more often now, not physically present, but everywhere else. Security she hadn't requested but couldn't deny was effective. Problems that vanished before they reached her. Doors opening where there had only been walls. And through it all, Vincent remained careful, attentive. distant enough to give her space, close enough to be felt. The breaking point came one evening when Lily received a call from an unknown number. She almost ignored it. Almost. "Ms. Cooper," a man's voice said calmly. "This is Detective Harris. I'd like to ask you a few questions about Vincent Russo." Her stomach dropped. The meeting was brief, polite, and deeply unsettling. No accusations. Just curiosity, connections, names. Lily answered carefully, truthfully, and left with her nerves frayed. When she told Vincent later that night, his reaction was immediate. "We need to move faster," he said, his voice tight. "Move where Lily asked." Fear flickering anew. "Somewhere safer," Vincent replied. "Until this settles." The word safer echoed ominously. Lily looked at Emma, asleep on the couch beside her, her small chest rising and falling peacefully. The decision crystallized with sudden clarity. "I'm not running," Lily said quietly. "I did that once. I won't do it again." Vincent studied her, something fierce and admiring in his gaze. "Then neither will I." In that moment, Lily understood the truth she had been circling for weeks. Loving Vincent Russo was not about romance or danger or rescue. It was about choice, about standing still when instincts screamed to flee, about believing that healing didn't mean avoiding scars, it meant choosing who was allowed to see them. And for the first time, Lily wasn't sure if she was more afraid of what Vincent could become for her, or how much she already wanted to let him. The first sign that something had shifted was not fear. It was calm. Lily noticed it on a Wednesday morning as she watched Emma button her coat, tongue caught between her teeth in concentration. There was no tightness in Lily's chest, no instinctive scan of the street below for familiar cars. The quiet had lasted long enough that it no longer felt fragile. It felt earned. That terrified her more than panic ever had. Because calm invited hope. And hope, Lily had learned, was the most dangerous thing of all. Vincent did not press her after their conversation at the cafe. He didn't ask for reassurance, didn't demand answers. He simply remained where he had always been since that first night, close enough to matter, far enough to respect her choice. Messages came once a day, sometimes only a line. "Did Emma like the book I sent?" "How was your shift?" Never questions that cornered her, never promises he couldn't keep. And yet, his world pressed closer. It arrived disguised as convenience. A new lock on her apartment door she hadn't requested. A secure phone delivered by Enzo with quiet instructions just in case. A man Lily didn't recognize waiting outside Emma's preschool one afternoon, smiling politely, explaining he was there to walk with them for a few blocks. Lily bristled, ready to refuse until she saw how gently he spoke to Emma, how he kept his distance without being told. Protection, she realized, didn't always look like control. Sometimes it looked like restraint. The restaurant changed too. Marco assigned Lily to private rooms more often. Tips improved. Schedules became flexible. No explanation was offered. And Lily didn't ask. She was beginning to understand how Vincent operated, how favors moved without being named, how influence didn't announce itself. Still, she told herself she was not part of his world. Not really. That illusion shattered the night David returned. It was raining. A steady, relentless downpour that blurred the streetlights into streaks of gold. Lily had just finished brushing Emma's hair for bed when the knock came. Sharp, insistent, her heart stopped. She didn't need to look through the peephole. Her body recognized him before her mind did. "Lily," David called, his voice slurred, familiar, hateful. "I know you're in there." Emma stiffened. Mommy Lily knelt instantly, forcing her voice steady. "It's nothing, sweetheart. Go to your room. I'll be right there." Emma hesitated, fear flickering in her eyes, then obeyed. Lily waited until the bedroom door closed before approaching the front door. She didn't open it. She kept the chain in place. "Go away," she said. David laughed. "You think you can hide behind him forever?" Her jaw tightened. "You need to leave. Russo's slipping." David sneered. "His people are talking." You didn't really think he'd burn his empire for you. Did you? The words struck deeper than Lily expected, not because she believed them, but because part of her had already wondered the same thing. Leave, she said again, louder now. David leaned closer to the door, his voice dropping. You made me look weak. In front of everyone, I lost everything because of you. No, Lily replied, surprising herself with the steadiness in her tone. You lost it because of you. The silence that followed was heavy, dangerous. Then David exploded. The chain rattled as he shoved the door, rage breaking through whatever restraint he had left. You don't get to rewrite the story. Lily's hand moved without conscious thought. She grabbed the secure phone. Before she could dial, the hallway lights flickered. Footsteps sounded. The door behind her opened. Mr. Cooper. Enzo's voice said calmly, This conversation is over. David spun around, face draining of color. You again? Enzo didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten. He simply stepped forward, filling the narrow hallway with quiet certainty. Another man stood behind him, expression unreadable. You were warned, Enzo continued. Multiple times. David's bravado cracked. You think Russo's untouchable? He's not. People are watching him, waiting. So are we, Enzo replied. The exchange was brief, efficient. David left without another word, his anger replaced by something far less comfortable fear. Lily slid down against the door once it was over, her body shaking. Vincent arrived less than 10 minutes later. He didn't ask questions. He didn't demand explanations. He knelt in front of her, his hands warm and steady as he checked her wrists, her shoulders, her face. I'm fine, Lily whispered. He didn't touch me. Vincent exhaled slowly, his forehead resting briefly against hers, the weight of control barely containing what lay beneath. This shouldn't have happened. I didn't call you, Lily said quietly. I didn't want to escalate things. Vincent pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. You didn't escalate anything. He did. The men cleared the apartment. Enzo stayed behind, speaking quietly into his phone, issuing instructions Lily didn't fully understand. She didn't try to. Her focus was on Emma, who had curled against Vincent without hesitation when he lifted her from bed to reassure her. The sight did something to Lily. Emma trusted him. Children didn't care about reputation or power. They sensed intent, safety. That realization settled into Lily's bones with undeniable force. Later, when Emma was asleep again and the apartment was quiet, Lily and Vincent stood by the window, watching the rain smear the city into abstraction. This is the last time, Vincent said. I won't allow him near you again. Lily turned to him slowly. What does that mean? It means we accelerate everything, Vincent replied. It means I finish what I started sooner than planned. And the cost, Vincent's gaze didn't waver. There is always a cost. Lily took a step closer. And if that cost is you, for the first time. Vincent hesitated. The silence stretched, raw and unguarded. That, he said finally, is why I didn't want to involve you. Lily reached for his hand, stopping just short. I'm already involved. Their eyes locked. Something unspoken passed between them, a recognition that there was no longer a safe distance to maintain. I'm not running, Lily said. Not from David. Not from this. I spent too long letting fear decide my life. Vincent searched her face, as if looking for doubt, for hesitation. He found none. Then you need to understand what staying means, he said softly. It won't be easy. It won't be clean. And I won't pretend I can protect you from everything. I don't need perfection, Lily replied. I need honesty. Vincent nodded once. Then here it is. If you stay, you choose me as I am, not as I hope to be. And you accept that there may be moments where the world I'm leaving tries to pull me back. Lily didn't answer immediately. She thought of the years she had spent shrinking, hiding, surviving, of the woman she barely recognized in the mirror anymore. Then she stepped forward and placed her hand over his heart. "Then don't pull away," she said. "Pull forward." Vincent's breath hitched. He covered her hand with his own, his touch reverent, almost disbelieving. In that moment, Lily understood the truth she could no longer deny. She wasn't being protected. She was being chosen. And for the first time in her life, Lily chose back. The decision settled quietly, like dust after a storm. There was no dramatic declaration, no sweeping promises spoken aloud. Lily didn't wake the next morning feeling transformed. She still packed lunches, tied shoelaces, and counted the minutes until her shift began. Yet beneath the ordinariness, something had shifted its weight inside her. She was no longer bracing for impact. She was standing still. Vincent noticed first. He saw it in the way Lily met his gaze without flinching, in how she no longer apologized for taking up space. When he arrived at her apartment later that week, he didn't bring flowers or gifts. He brought a folder. "I want you to know what staying means," he said, setting it on the table between them. Not in vague terms. In reality. Lily nodded, her pulse steady. "Show me." Inside were documents, maps, timelines, names, not details of violence, but logistics, routes they would avoid, places they would go if things went wrong, names of people Vincent trusted, and those he didn't. It was the anatomy of a life being dismantled carefully, piece by piece. "This isn't running," he said. "It's transition." "And the people who don't want you to leave?" Lily asked. Vincent's mouth tightened slightly. "They will test me." "They already are," as if summoned by the admission. Vincent's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and went still. "What is it?" Lily asked. "A reminder," he said after a moment, "that not everyone believes I'm serious." He didn't elaborate, and Lily didn't push. She had learned that Vincent shared what he could when he could. Trust, she realized, wasn't about access. It was about intention. The test came sooner than either of them expected. It happened on a Friday afternoon, bright and unassuming. Lily was leaving the restaurant early. Emma's recital circled on her calendar in red. She stepped outside, the city warm and buzzing, and walked 3 blocks before she noticed the car pacing her. A dark sedan, tinted windows. Her heartbeat quickened, but she didn't panic. She crossed the street deliberately. The car followed. Lily stopped. The sedan slowed to a halt a few feet away. The window lowered. The man inside was unfamiliar older, sharply dressed, his expression polite in a way that felt rehearsed. "Ms. Cooper," he said pleasantly, "I believe we should talk." Lily's hand tightened around her phone. "I don't know you." "No," he agreed, "but I know you." She held his gaze. "Then you know I'm busy." A smile flickered. "This will only take a moment." Lily didn't move. "I'm here on behalf of some people who are concerned," he continued, "about your influence." The word made her laugh softly. "You're giving me too much credit." "On the contrary," the man said, "you're far more important than you realize." Before Lily could respond, a familiar presence stepped into her peripheral vision. "Enzo?" He said nothing at first. He simply placed himself beside Lily, his stance casual, his eyes sharp. "This conversation is finished," Enzo said calmly. The man in the sedan studied him. Then Lily, "Be careful," he said lightly. "People get hurt when they don't understand the games they're playing." The window slid up. The car pulled away. Lily exhaled slowly. Enzo turned to her. "Mr. Russo is on his way." Vincent arrived 10 minutes later, his expression tightly controlled. He listened as Enzo recounted the encounter, his jaw set, his eyes dark. "They approached you directly," Vincent said, not to Enzo, but to Lily. "Yes." He took her hands, his grip firm but grounding. "This shouldn't have happened." "You said there would be tests," Lily replied. "I'm not surprised." Something in her steadiness seemed to both comfort and unsettle him. That night, Vincent didn't leave. They sat together in the quiet of Lily's apartment after Emma had gone to bed, the city's glow filtering through the curtains. Vincent spoke slowly, deliberately. They wanted to see if fear would move you. He said, "If you would run, if you would ask me to stop, and if I had Lily asked." He didn't answer immediately. "Then I would have known where your limits were." And now Vincent met her gaze. "Now I know you're stronger than they expected." The words warmed her, but the implication chilled her. "Does that make things worse?" she asked. "Yes," he said honestly. "And better." The tension between them was no longer unspoken. It vibrated beneath the surface, sharpened by danger and proximity. Lily felt it when Vincent brushed past her in the kitchen, when his hand hovered at her back without touching. She had lived too long with violence to confuse intensity for affection. This was different. This was restraint. Later, as they stood near the window, Vincent broke the silence. "There's something else you need to know." Lily turned to him. "My exit won't be quiet," he said. "There will be fallout, investigations, pressure. I can shield you from most of it, but not all. I can handle questions." Lily said. Vincent's gaze softened. "I know. It's Emma I worry about." Lily's breath caught. "She doesn't deserve this." "No," he agreed. "Which is why I won't let it touch her. You can't control everything." Vincent nodded. "But I can control myself." The admission felt heavier than any vow. Days later, the pressure escalated. Vincent's schedule grew erratic. Meetings ran late. Calls came at all hours. Lily saw the strain in his eyes, the careful way he measured his words around her. She didn't ask for reassurance. She gave him space, the same way he had given it to her. One evening, Vincent arrived unannounced. His composure cracked just enough to show the cost. "They tried to force my hand," he said quietly. "Did they succeed?" Lily asked. "No." She stepped closer. "What did it cost you?" Vincent's voice dropped. "Someone I trusted?" The silence that followed was heavy with grief, neither of them fully named. Lily reached for him then, her fingers threading into his sleeve. "You don't have to carry this alone." Vincent closed his eyes briefly, leaning into her touch with a vulnerability that stole her breath. "This is why I'm afraid for you," he admitted. "Because you make me want things I can't afford to lose." Lily tilted her head up. "I'm not asking you to be fearless. I'm asking you to be honest." He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. That night, for the first time, Vincent stayed until morning. They didn't rush anything. They spoke quietly, shared memories, allowed the space between them to soften naturally. When he finally kissed her, it was gentle, deliberate, a question more than a claim. Lily answered without hesitation. In that moment, she understood the price of being chosen. It wasn't safety, it was visibility. And as dawn broke over the city, Lily knew there was no turning back, not because she was trapped, but because she was no longer willing to hide. The first thing Lily understood was that silence could be louder than chaos. It arrived without warning, settling over Vincent like a held breath. No calls at odd hours, no rushed departures, no half-finished sentences cut short by vibrating phones. For 3 days, Vincent stayed close present in a way that felt intentional rather than reactive. He walked Emma to school once, his hand hovering just behind her shoulder, as if guarding an invisible boundary. He cooked dinner in Lily's small kitchen, sleeves rolled up, movements careful, almost reverent. The calm was unnerving. On the 4th night, it shattered. Vincent was standing by the window when his phone rang. He glanced at the screen and went still, the city lights reflecting sharply in his eyes. He answered without a word. Lily watched his posture change, not tense, not angry, but alert, like a door opening somewhere deep inside him. "Yes," he said quietly. A pause. No. Another pause. Longer this time. I understand. He ended the call and remained where he was, unmoving. Vincent, Lily said softly. He turned. They've made their move. Her heart thudded. Who the ones who believe I'm bluffing? He crossed the room and took her hands, grounding himself as much as her. They didn't touch you. They didn't touch Emma. Relief rushed through her, sharp and dizzying. Then what did they do? They went after what I'm leaving behind. Lily searched his face. What does that mean? It means there's no more pretending this can be quiet? His voice was steady, but something fierce burned beneath it. They want to force me to choose publicly, to remind everyone who I used to be. And what did you choose? Lily asked. Vincent's gaze held hers. You. The word landed like a vow and a warning all at once. That night, they didn't sleep. Vincent spoke openly for the first time about the final steps, the handovers already in motion. The accounts frozen. The legitimate businesses separated from the rest. He explained the risks without drama, without bravado. Lily listened, absorbing the reality with a clarity that surprised her. Fear was present. Yes, but it no longer ruled. At dawn, Enzo arrived. He didn't knock. Time, he said simply. Vincent kissed Emma's forehead before she woke, lingering for a moment longer than necessary. Lily felt the weight of that goodbye, even as he told her it wasn't one. When he turned to her, his expression softened. Stay here, he said. I'll be back tonight. Lily studied him. You don't know that. Vincent smiled faintly. I do. She wanted to argue. Instead, she nodded. The hours crawled. Lily kept busy laundry, cleaning, anything to keep her hands moving. Emma sensed the tension and stayed close, asking questions Lily answered carefully. Outside, the street felt different, watchful, expectant. The call came just after sunset. Vincent's name lit up the screen. I need you to pack a bag, he said without preamble. Just essentials. Her stomach tightened. What happened? A complication. He paused. Nothing I can't handle, but I won't risk you staying exposed. I'm not running, Lily said automatically. I know, Vincent replied. This isn't running. It's repositioning. She closed her eyes briefly. Where somewhere? I promised myself I wouldn't need again. The drive took them out of the city, away from familiar lights and noise, toward the coast. The house waited at the edge of a cliff, modern and quiet, glass reflecting the darkening sea. It felt removed from time itself, a place for endings and beginnings. This was my mother's, Vincent said as they stepped inside. When things were simpler. Inside, the air smelled faintly of salt and cedar. Lily felt the weight of history in the walls, the echoes of choices made long before she existed. They sat by the fire as the sky darkened. Vincent spoke carefully, choosing each word with intention. I won't pretend tonight doesn't matter. What happens next will decide how clean the rest of this can be. And if it isn't clean, Lily asked. Vincent met her gaze. Then we adjust. She reached for his hand. I'm not afraid of the mess. I'm afraid of losing you. The admission cracked something open between them. Vincent set his glass aside and turned fully toward her. There's something I haven't given you yet. Lily frowned. You've given me more than I asked for. He shook his head. Not this. From his pocket, he withdrew a small velvet box, smaller than the one that had held the bracelet. Lily's breath caught not with excitement, but with gravity. This isn't a proposal, Vincent said quietly. Not yet. It's a promise. He opened the box. Inside was a ring set with a deep blue sapphire, understated and luminous, catching the firelight with quiet strength. This belonged to my grandmother. Vincent continued. She told me to give it only to someone who could survive loving me. Lily's throat tightened. Vincent, I'm not asking you to say yes to a future I can't fully guarantee. He said, I'm asking you to believe that I'm fighting for one." She didn't cry. She didn't hesitate. She slipped the ring onto her finger, the cool weight settling into place like it had always belonged there. "Yes," she said simply. Vincent exhaled, the tension draining from his shoulders. He pulled her close then, not with urgency, but with reverence, as if grounding himself in the reality of her. Their kiss was deeper this time, still controlled, but charged with everything they hadn't said. The peace didn't last. Headlights flared outside, slicing across the glass. Enzo's voice came sharp through Vincent's phone. "We have company." Vincent moved instantly, positioning Lily behind him without touching her. He scanned the perimeter, jaw set. "Stay here," he said. "I'm not hiding," Lily replied. His gaze flicked to hers, something like pride flashing briefly before the steel returned. "Then stand where I can see you." The men who emerged from the darkness weren't strangers to Vincent. Their presence was calculated, their smiles thin. "This doesn't have to end badly," one of them said. Vincent's response was calm. It already has. The confrontation was brief, tense, and bloodless, but only because Vincent had planned for this exact moment. Words were exchanged, lines drawn, consequences outlined. When it was over, the men left with promises they didn't intend to keep. Lily stepped forward. "Is it finished?" Vincent shook his head. "No." But it started. They stood together in the quiet aftermath, the ocean roaring below like a witness. Lily understood then that loving Vincent meant accepting a life lived in thresholds between danger and peace, between past and possibility. But as Vincent's hand found hers, steady and warm, Lily knew something else too. She was no longer waiting for the other shoe to drop. She was walking forward. And whatever came next would find her standing, not hiding, with the man she had chosen and who had chosen her back, even when it cost him everything. The days that followed felt unreal, suspended between what had already been broken and what had not yet fallen apart. They stayed at the house by the sea. Not hiding, Vincent was careful to correct Lily every time she framed it that way, but waiting for ripples to turn into waves, waiting to see which promises would be kept and which would come back sharpened. Vincent moved with quiet precision. Calls were made at dawn and after dusk, never when Emma was awake. Men came and went, faces Lily didn't know, voices low, respectful. No one questioned her presence. That alone told her how final Vincent's decision had been. At night, when the house settled into silence and the ocean pressed its steady rhythm against the cliffs, Lily lay awake beside him, tracing the slow rise and fall of his breathing. She had never slept next to a man without bracing herself, without preparing for disappointment or harm. With Vincent, sleep came softly, like a fragile truce with the past. Still, tension lived beneath the calm. One morning, Vincent stood at the kitchen counter, staring at his phone long after the call had ended. Lily watched him from the doorway, reading the signs she had learned over months, the way his jaw tightened, the stillness that meant calculation rather than anger. "What is it?" she asked. He didn't look up. "They've frozen one of my accounts." Legitimate this time. Her stomach dropped. "The authorities? Not officially," Vincent replied. "Yet." "So this is what it looks like," Lily said quietly. "The fallout." Vincent turned to her then, his gaze steady. "This is why I needed you to understand the cost before we reached the end." Lily nodded. She had known this moment would come. The cost was no longer abstract. It was here, pressing against the edges of their fragile peace. Later that day, Enzo arrived with news that stripped away the illusion of control. One of Vincent's former allies had flipped. Not publicly, not yet, but enough to make things unpredictable. "They're circling," Enzo said. "Not attacking, watching." And David, Lily asked before she could stop herself. Enzo hesitated. "He's been asking questions." Vincent's expression hardened. "About her?" "Yes." The air in the room thickened. Lily felt the old fear stir, sharp and instinctive. But it didn't take hold the way it once had. She stepped forward, placing her hand lightly against Vincent's arm. "He doesn't get to decide my life anymore," she said. "Whatever he thinks he knows." Vincent covered her hand with his own. "I won't let him near you." "I know," Lily replied. "But this isn't just about him. Is it?" Vincent didn't answer right away. That night, after Emma had fallen asleep in the spare room with the soft murmur of the ocean beneath her dreams, Vincent poured 2 glasses of wine and handed one to Lily. He didn't drink his. "There's something I've been avoiding saying," he began. Lily waited. "If this ends the way I hope," Vincent continued, "we leave. Not temporarily. Permanently." Her heart skipped. "Where somewhere quiet. Somewhere no one cares about my past." His gaze softened. "Somewhere Emma can grow up without knowing any of this." The thought tightened Lily's chest. "You're talking about starting over." "Yes. And if it doesn't end the way you hope Vincent met her eyes, then you and Emma will still leave, with or without me." The words landed like a blow. "No," Lily said immediately. It's non-negotiable." Vincent interrupted, his voice gentle but unyielding. "I will not let my choices endanger you." Lily stood, anger and fear tangling painfully in her chest. "You don't get to decide that alone." Vincent rose as well. "I'm not deciding alone. I'm protecting what matters. I matter," Lily shot back. "And I'm telling you, I won't walk away from you if things get hard." Vincent's composure cracked then, just slightly. "And I'm telling you that loving you has made me reckless in ways I can't afford." The silence stretched, raw and trembling. Lily stepped closer. "Loving you has made me brave." Vincent closed his eyes, the conflict etched across his face. When he opened them, his gaze was fierce and tender all at once. "You shouldn't have to be brave because of me." "But I am," Lily said softly, "and I choose it." Before he could respond, Enzo's voice cut through the moment. "We have a problem." They turned as one. David contacted one of the men who flipped. Enzo said, "He offered information. About Lily. About Emma." The world narrowed. Vincent's face went cold. "Where is he?" "We don't know yet," Enzo replied. "But he's desperate." Lily felt Vincent's hand tighten around hers. "This is my past," she said. "Let me face it." Vincent shook his head. "No. You can't fight everything for me. I can fight this." "And if fighting it costs you everything Lily asked?" Vincent hesitated. That hesitation told her more than any answer could have. Later that night, Lily stood alone on the terrace, the sapphire ring cool against her skin, the ocean roaring below like a warning. She thought of the woman she had been afraid, shrinking, convinced survival meant silence. She thought of the mother she was now, of the future Emma deserved. When Vincent joined her, she didn't turn. "If this is the end of your old life," she said quietly, "then part 10 shouldn't be about escape. It should be about choice." Vincent followed her gaze to the horizon. "And if that choice costs us peace," Lily finally looked at him, "then it better buy us truth." In the distance, thunder rolled low, ominous, inevitable. The final storm was coming, and when it broke, nothing would remain untouched. The storm did not arrive with gunfire or sirens. It came with a phone call. Vincent received it just before dawn, the ocean still wrapped in fog, the house holding its breath. He listened without interruption, his face unreadable, one hand braced against the window as if steadying himself against an invisible tide. When he ended the call, Lily was already awake. "It's time," he said quietly. She didn't ask what that meant. She knew. Enzo arrived within minutes, his usual composure sharpened by urgency. "David is in the city," he said. "He's arranged a meeting. He wants immunity." Lily's pulse spiked, but her voice remained steady. "In exchange for what?" "Everything," Enzo replied. "Names, roots, evidence. He's trying to sell himself as useful." Vincent's jaw tightened. "And you let him think he is?" Yes. Lily stepped forward. You're not meeting him alone. Vincent turned to her. This is my life, Lily said calmly. And my daughter's. The silence stretched. Finally, Vincent nodded once. You won't be in the room, but you'll be close. The meeting took place in a government building that smelled of old paper and restraint. Lily waited in a side room with Emma asleep against her shoulder, the quiet punctured only by the ticking of a clock. Enzo stood guard by the door. Lily focused on Emma's breathing, steady and trusting, anchoring herself to the present. When Vincent emerged, it was over. David did not look at Lily as he was escorted past. He looked smaller than she remembered, hollowed by desperation, stripped of the power fear had once lent him. Lily felt no triumph, only release. Outside, the fog lifted, revealing a pale morning sky. It's done, Vincent said softly. What does that mean? Lily asked. It means he gave them enough to protect himself, Vincent replied, and enough to finish dismantling what I started. Lily absorbed the words slowly. And you, Vincent exhaled. I gave them the rest. The weight of it settled between them. Over the following weeks, the world rearranged itself with surprising speed. Accounts were unfrozen, then closed, businesses transferred, then sold. Investigations concluded with quiet efficiency. Vincent disappeared from headlines before he ever appeared in them. He didn't celebrate. Instead, he packed boxes. They left the city without ceremony. No final glances, no dramatic goodbyes. Just a car rolling toward a horizon that felt both terrifying and clean. They chose a place where the air smelled like citrus and rain, where the streets were narrow and forgiving, where no one knew Vincent Russo and no one cared to ask. A place where Lily's accent made her interesting rather than suspicious, where Emma learned new words and laughed easily, unburdened by memories she didn't need to carry. The house was modest, sunlit, alive with the sounds of morning. Vincent planted vines in the garden with Emma, kneeling beside her as she pressed seeds into the soil with solemn care. Lily watched from the doorway, something warm and unfamiliar loosening in her chest. At night, when the world grew quiet, Vincent sometimes woke startled, old instincts snapping awake. Lily learned the shape of his fear the way he had learned hers, not to judge it, not to rush it away, but to sit with it until it passed. Healing, she realized, was not an erasure. It was an accumulation of gentler moments. One evening, months later, they walked along the edge of the sea, Emma chasing birds ahead of them. Her laughter carried on the wind. Vincent slowed, his steps deliberate. There's something I owe you, he said. Lily glanced at him. You don't owe me anything. Vincent stopped. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small ring box empty. This is not a proposal, he said, a familiar softness in his voice. It's a question. Lily's breath caught. You already asked. No, Vincent replied. I asked you to wait. This is me asking if you still choose me now that there's nothing left to fight. Lily considered him the man he had been, the man he was becoming, the space he had made for her strength rather than trying to replace it with his own. She thought of the night she had grabbed a stranger's hand, believing survival meant proximity to power. She took his hand now, not out of fear, but out of certainty. Yes, she said, I choose you. Vincent smiled, then not the restrained curve Lily had grown used to, but something open and unguarded, as if a weight he'd carried too long had finally been set down. They did not rush. Time stretched, generous and unremarkable. Lily enrolled in classes she had once believed belonged to another life. Vincent opened a small business that required patience rather than dominance. Emma grew, steady and confident, surrounded by adults who listened. On a quiet afternoon, Lily found the bracelet again, the tiny key still cool against her wrist. She smiled, understanding its meaning at last. It had never been about unlocking doors. It had been about choosing which ones to walk through. Years later, when someone asked Lily how it had all begun, she didn't mention power or danger. She spoke of a night when fear cornered her, and she reached for connection instead of silence. Of a man who chose to change rather than conquer. Of the slow, deliberate work of building something gentler from what had once been broken. She spoke of love not as rescue, but as recognition. And in the quiet that followed, Lily knew the truth she had earned. She had not been saved. She had survived. And then finally she had lived.